Well, he has certainly become the rock star of the ride. Marco Rubio, the Florida sensation, whose soaring poll numbers prompted Governor Charlie Crist to go third party. But could Rubio now have an issue with Republicans, too, on an issue far from Florida, but very much a concern in Florida? Arizona and the illegal crackdown, Rubio says, doesn't add up. The senatorial candidate joining me right now. Marco, good to have you back. Thank you.
Thanks for having me back.
First of all, I want to get clear your position on what Governor Brewer did in Arizona.
Sure. Well, two separate issues. The first is what they did in Arizona. I don't have a right to criticize them. No one that doesn't live in Arizona has a right to criticize them because I was there a month and a half ago. The people of Arizona are rightfully concerned about rampant crime, kidnappings, murders, and an uncontrolled border. So Arizona is going to do what's in the best interest of the people of Arizona. They have a right to do that, and I respect that. Separate from that issue, all I have said is that I don't believe that law is the best answer to this problem. The best answer to this problem is for the federal government to do its job. This is happening because the federal government has failed to act.
The governor agrees. The governor agrees, Marco, and that's why she's doing this, because the federal government isn't doing it. So she had no choice, she says. What do you say?
Right, absolutely. Well, and I'm surprised it's taken so long. In essence, I think that California and Texas and other border states are going to look at that as well, because particularly the Mexican border, it's not even an immigration issue anymore. It's become a law enforcement issue. I heard that loud and clear a month and a half ago when I was in Phoenix. So the only thing I've said is that the law over time may have some unintended consequences. Now, it's my understanding that over the last few days, the Arizona legislature has moved even further to clarify some points in the law, and that's great. But the intent of this law, I've never questioned the intent. The intent has always been to secure Arizona, as is their right to do. However, this is a wake-up call to the federal government. Now, I hope the folks in Washington, D.C. take this for what it is, a serious law enforcement threat to all these border states. You have an all-out drug war going on in Mexico.
But they're not. They're not. In fact, no, but they're not, Marco. In fact, if anything, now we hear from the president that action on immigration could be delayed. So it gets back to this issue of what they're doing in Arizona and whether you think that, as critics have said of this, regardless of the legitimate reasons why the governor did this, it's going to appear racist. It will be a racist move.
No. Well, actually, on the contrary, in my statement that I put out earlier this week, I specifically said that I knew that the intent of this bill was solely law enforcement based, that had nothing to do with anything else but the desire of the people of Arizona to deal with an emergency situation that no one else is helping them with. And as I've said repeatedly, it's easy for lawyers sitting in an air-conditioned studio in New York or Washington to criticize a law, but they're not living with this problem, and that's why 70% of the people in Arizona support the bill.
So what do you think of your congressman from your fine state, Connie Mack, who's likened what they're doing in Arizona to Gestapo-like tactics, to what they did in Nazi Germany?
I actually haven't read what Congressman Mack has said, but I've been asked about that earlier today, and I need to read his statement. I think what he's expressing, and I don't want to speak for him, is that there are portions of the law that over time may lead to unintended consequences. You know, that's why I've said this is not the best solution. The best solution to America's illegal immigration problem is for the federal government to do its job. We have a federal government that's involved in all sorts of things that are none of its business. Well, immigration and border security is its business, and they refuse to do anything about it even to this day. And my biggest fear is that this will now become an excuse for the Obama administration and the congressional leadership to try to ram an amnesty bill down the throat of the American people.
Let me get your take on how this affects Latinos in general, if you don't mind. There is a concern expressed by just Republican Party honchos that the progress they've made in the Latino community, particularly with your candidacy, is going to be torpedoed if the party goes the Arizona law route. Do you buy that?
No. And there's two different things going on. Number one, for anyone, and I'm not claiming that Republican leaders are thinking this, but let me just say that Hispanics, people of Hispanic descent in the United States, are law-abiding citizens. They want the law to be followed. Why would they not want the law to be followed? I mean, these are law-abiding people who love this country and are proud to be Americans. I think polling has showed that Americans of Hispanic descent in Arizona support this bill as strongly as the general population does. The second thing I would tell you is that the most important issue in the Hispanic community in America is not immigration. It's economic empowerment. It's the ability to leave their children better off than themselves. What I do think is troubling to many Hispanic voters is some of the rhetoric by a handful of people over the years that has been troublesome. And that's why I've always said to my Republican colleagues, look, we don't want to be the anti-illegal immigration party. We want to be the pro-legal immigration party. And we have to clearly outline why illegal immigration is bad for legal immigration, which is what we're for.
Looking at the landscape right now, Charlie Crist opting out, running against you as a Republican. Maybe he thinks he'll have a better shot as a third-party candidate. The race tightens up considerably, a three-way battle that way. Are you worried?
I'm not worried, because ultimately this race to me was about running against what was happening in Washington, D.C. When I got in 12 months ago and very few people gave me a shot, I got in because I was the only candidate in this race that was going to go to Washington, D.C., stand up to this agenda that the Obama administration is advancing and offer a clear alternative. And I'm still the only candidate that is going to do that. Bottom line is, I'm still running against two people, in Kendrick Meek and Charlie Crist, who support the Obama agenda. I just didn't realize I would have to run against both of them at the same time.
Real quickly, your take on this financial world bashing that we've been seeing and what could be potentially criminal charges against Goldman Sachs. Where's this going?
Well, on the financial regulation front, again, it's just like the stimulus. They give people this false choice. You're either for regulations or you're for nothing at all. That's not true. I think there's a consensus that there need to be some changes made, transparency in derivatives, looking at some of the leveraging issues that endangered America's economy. But that's far removed from a permanent bailout fund, from some sort of consumer protection bureaucracy that's going to have sweeping powers that really, at the end of the day, is going to end up hurting Main Street more than it gets after anyone on Wall Street, because it's those small banks and small companies that are going to struggle to comply with the regulations of some sort of a new government bureaucracy with sweeping powers. We have a right to be very concerned, and I think it's just part of an overall effort by the Obama administration and the congressional leadership in our country to redefine the free enterprise system in America and the government's role in our country.
Well, I wish we had more time, Marco Rubio. We do not, but always good seeing you. Thank you very much.
We'll be back. Thank you.
All right, Marco Rubio. Meanwhile,